Hey Ricky, you know what's awesome?
What's that, Billy?
Kurt Russell and John Carpenter together making movies, dude.
It's like the best of both worlds.
It is, man. It's killer. All right, all right, all right. So, a couple weeks ago, we talked about Big Trouble in Little China,
Yep, yep.
and I think all conversations, even if we start talking about, you know, what are your plans for Easter, all conversations eventually lead back to The Thing as the one of the greatest horror movies ever made. One of the greatest films ever made, really,
Yeah,
but one of the greatest horror movies ever made.
absolutely.
And then, and so then you have this kind of recurring theme of greatness, and it's when Kurt Russell and John Carpenter get together, with the exception of like maybe one shot in the '90s.
Yeah.
Um, it's magical and it's awesome, and so I ran across I just was bored the other night, and I figured, hey, I'm gonna throw in. I haven't watched Escape from New York in a while,
Oh, yeah.
and that's something that we can talk about on the show. I can talk about on the other show. Like let's just throw this disc in here. And I hadn't seen it. That's one of those other ones that had been on cable so much that
Mhm.
you have scenes in your head, but you don't ever just really sit down and just watch it all the way through. And sitting down watching it all the way through, I was like, wow, this first of all, this movie holds up.
Yeah.
Like a lot of movies hold up, but few movies actually get better. Like it seems more relevant now than, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it started and it ended and it was over, and I was just blown away by how, like, every scene, like, it's all killer. There's no filler in there.
Yeah.
Every character is perfectly rendered. The casting is phenomenal. That's like the perfect cast for an '80s movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it's an all-star '80s movie cast, and I just had a blast. But one of the things that just struck me is like, okay, that's three Kurt Russell, John Carpenter movies that we can talk about, and three completely different characters on the part of Russell.
Yeah.
Whereas, the difference between Jack Burton and Snake Plissken are completely night and day.
Yep.
And then, R.J. McCready is somewhere in between them.
Yep.
So it's yeah,
Yeah.
I think it makes for a good show.
Of course, like you said, we can't share enough love about Big Trouble in Little China, but there is no Big Trouble in Little China if you don't rewind the tape and go back to these other ones. And Escape from New York is where the magic happened. You got Carpenter at the top of his game, right? There probably wasn't a bigger name in horror, sci-fi, just in general at that point. And then you take Kurt Russell, whose career at this point had kind of dwindled a bit, right? You kind of had Used Cars that was out there, which is a 100% favorite of mine. But
Hmm.
he wasn't the superstar that he is now. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it. But so it was just that combination. I mean, of course, you kind of have to go back to the John Carpenter Elvis movie, right?
Hmm.
So Kurt Russell played Elvis
In a TV
in
movie.
that TV movie, and that I think that's what sparked the friendship and got it going. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's the story. And then out of this, you get Snake Plissken, and the rest is just movie icon history.
Hmm. Yeah, and again, what struck me too is watching these all three of these movies in such close uh, timelines is how different the characters are and
Yeah,
how perfectly they're played. Because
yeah,
Kurt Russell is, I mean, he's a movie star. He was a child actor. But he's been in the industry for so long that you can't help but get good at what you do.
yeah,
But just the range of characters. So, if you're looking at, again, like Jack Burton is playing, Jack Burton, the character, is pretending to be a Snake Plissken sort of guy that he's not,
right.
right? And Snake Plissken is a certified badass.
Yeah, the real
Like,
deal. Yeah,
he's the real deal. Just for whatever reason, I think like Cobra Kai, he strikes hard, strikes fast, no mercy. He's like, but you need some something to happen, and he's going to take care of it, and he's
Yeah.
not scared, and he's about the only thing he's scared of is those things in his neck.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
So, but of course,
that's the setup.
anybody,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, anybody would be.
that's what's amazing about it is here's his chance to freedom is to get on the other side of this. The only thing that's stopping him is these things that are in his neck, right? I
Hmm.
mean, it's just it's one of those movies that you stand back in amazement when you watch it. And like you said, it's one of those that when it comes on TV, it's a little different because Big Trouble in Little China, if it comes on, you're going to stop it and you're going to finish the movie from wherever it picks up. And I'm kind of like what you said. When Escape from New York is on, you're looking for those high point scenes and you kind of move on because that John Carpenter soundtrack moves you through that movie so well. And
Hmm.
just the concept of what's going on in that movie has been redone 100 times, right? You take the guy that's got nothing to lose, you put him on a mission, and you give him the keys to the Cadillac if he comes out on the other side. We've seen that 100 times, but
I was thinking like I remember whenever The Rock came out
sure,
with Sean Connery. I was like, this is Escape from New York.
yep,
I mean, this is really it's the same plot.
yep.
And
And Carpenter always had his pulse on that too, because you go back to Assault on Precinct 13. It's kind of the same deal. And what's weird is look at what's happening right now with all the riots and everything.
hmm
Look at what Portland was kind of becoming, right? We're putting up our own wall. We're going to keep all the crazies in here. Everybody else go about your business.
yeah,
This is what Escape of New York is. Taking this island, roping it off,
well,
making it Australia,
yep,
right?
pretty much, yeah.
Drop all your baddies in there, and my granddaughter calls them baddies. You're a baddie, pop pop, And hey, let them do what they want. Rule like you want to, which we got a little picture of that with the whole Portland deal. But
Yeah, it doesn't work out well.
but yeah, it's amazing that in the back of your mind, hey, this stuff, as weird as it seems, sometimes
It-
sometimes it goes
Sometimes it
real,
happens. Yeah, exactly.
And then you
Totally.
think about movies like The Purge and all that stuff, definitely influenced by this, right?
Oh, certainly.
So it's groundbreaking on so many levels. There's so many visuals that you take away from it. That kick-ass gun that he's using, Lee Van Cleef. I mean, come on, you were talking about the cast earlier.
I was gonna
Everybody,
say
man.
it's like you get like well, I'm gonna say with probably no, not even really. I mean, everybody's perfectly class. I was even gonna say like Donald Pleasance seems like a sympathetic character until the end. And Donald Pleasance he's always been he plays great characters. Like whenever he's in James Bond versus whenever
Yep.
he's in Halloween or whatever. It's
Yep.
like he's not a bright shining good guy, but he's also not evil. He's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And he plays that same role. But I mean, Donald Pleasance is excellent as the president.
Oh, sure.
Um, you know, what's his name? Poor guy, I always forget his name.
Ernest Borgnine.
Oh no, he's part. Cabby's awesome. He didn't get sentenced to prison. He just didn't leave. Like, I was like, I never noticed that before. But yeah, he tells him, he's like, yeah, everything started going bad, and I just kept driving the cab, and the walls came up around him, and he just ended up stuck, and
Just
he's
stuck
like
here.
stuck in this hellscape.
Right.
Like, no, he was an alien. What's his name? He's Brain. Harry Dean Stanton,
Harry Dean Stanton. Yeah.
the character actor that was in every single movie of the '80s. and,
Pretty much.
and I had forgotten he was in it. Like, I remember his character, but whenever he showed up, he's one of those guys, kind of like David Young, who's been in so many movies that you forget that it's him until you see him. Like,
Right.
I'd forgotten that was him in Big Trouble in Little China. It's like,
Yeah.
or in not Big Trouble in Little China, in Ninja 3, whenever he pops up, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's David Lopan. You know, it's like, you know, it's like it's the guy from Big Trouble in Little China and Seinfeld. You
Right.
know, it's like there's so many characters that he's played. Harry Dean Stanton was the same way. He was in so many movies that you kind of don't notice him until he's gone, and then you're like, oh man, he's everywhere. You know?
You know who you didn't forget was in this movie though? Adrian Barbeau.
Nope, not at all. And even if I had, Scott would like reach up through the phone and punch me in the face because that's like his favorite person. Funny story. Adrian Barbeau actually wrote a novel, and it was called Hollywood Vampires, and it was I guess it was kind of like a horror romance. And I found a first edition copy in Goodwill for like $1.50, and it was like brand new. Like the spine was not even like, it was crisp and new. Like somebody had just removed it from a bookshelf, put it in a Goodwill, they put it on the shelf, and I bought it. But he's such a big Adrian Barbeau fan that I gave him the book. And then at Frightmare, she was there signing, and he brought that book to get her to sign, and she was all excited because it had been out of print for like years and years. And so he ended up getting her to sign that book for him. So
that's cool.
Turned out pretty neat because he was like, oh, she's going to be there, but what am I going to get her to sign? I was like, check this out, bro.
I went to her Q&A while we're there, too, and it was pretty neat because we're all goofy nerd fans, right, of these movies. And they would ask her about them. She'd be like, yeah, I don't really remember. You know, you're like, how can you not remember? But, she's an actress. She's in tons of stuff, right? And
yeah.
So it's sometimes it's weird to see somebody and you're thinking, this is what I know you for. I know you as, the loudmouth chick in Creepshow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, yeah, I don't really remember much about it. And you're just like, okay.
Because especially in a movie like Creepshow where she shows up, she probably filmed for one day.
Right.
She probably had 2 scenes. Her role was very, like, although it was a pronounced role, she wasn't on screen for very long.
Right.
She was just on screen long enough to make you know that she was annoying and he was getting driven nuts.
What would you do without me, Harry?
So, but yeah, it was pretty awesome to be like, I don't know, I was in that movie. But then again, Stephen King says he wrote entire books and didn't remember. So
he's like Keith Richards, right? He just wakes up and goes, what the hell was that? Who wrote that? That was you, man. It's on that cassette. Oh, okay. He says that about Can't Get No Satisfaction, right? He said that he went back and listened to a cassette he recorded when he was drunk, and it was on there. And he said, if I wouldn't have had that cassette, that song would have never happened.
Stuff like that happens, man. Like you're just inspired, and you come back later, you're like, man, I guess that I was having a pretty good night. I just wasn't fully there. But no, man. And then you go to like the same actor and director to move to like The Thing, a whole lot darker, a whole lot bleaker sort of. I mean, not totally, because New York is. With New York, you assume that outside of New York, there's still at least some semblance of normal life. It's not completely apocalyptic. In The Thing, if that thing gets out,
there's
it's
nothing.
over.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that we're talking about The Thing with Wilford Brimley passing away recently too, because Blair was pretty good bad guy for not saying much.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. It was such a great.
Well, you're just about how great the cast was in Escape from New York, and this is no different, man. I mean, this this cast is balls to the wall. Mm-hmm. And Wilford, man, with his diabetes, pretty dang awesome.
And it's funny because Scott and I were talking about him the other day, and how, depending on how old you are, there is a Wilford Brimley for you. So if you're like us, then it was The Thing and a couple other movies, and then later he was the Quaker Oats guy.
Oh yeah.
And then he was on a TV show for a couple of years, like a family drama, and then he was the diabetes guy.
Right.
And so he's like he's worn many hats over the years as a spokesperson for a certain genre, basically.
I think even during his
And
movie career, he was doing Country Time lemonade commercials too, which probably gave
hmm
him diabetes.
probably,
Man, my grandma
yeah.
used to make that, and it'd be like one scoop of the lemonade and like 15 scoops of sugar.
I remember because my mom wouldn't let me have. I mean, she'd let me have Kool-Aid, right? But I'd go over to friends' houses and it would always taste different. So like
Watered down.
when I drank Kool-Aid at home, it tasted, kind of like Kool-Aid flavored water. And I go to a friend's house and it tastes like. And then I was older. I was probably in high school, and I read the back of a thing, and it's like add this packet and like 4 cups of sugar to
Right.
a glass of water. I was like, there's no way that's right. But I tried it, and I was like,
That's it. That's it.
that's the flavor.
Yeah. When I take a drink, my hair stands up. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Oh.
But I tell you what, man, I'm not ashamed to say it, because why would you whenever it comes to a horror movie, right? The autopsy thing in the thing,
Oh, yeah.
the scene in the thing, gets me every time. That jump
Absolutely.
scare.
Yep.
And I think there's something just off with the rhythm
Mm-hmm.
somehow, the pacing, because it's kind of like whenever you have a band that, they stop, and so there's nothing backing the song up, and then they count to 4 and you hit the downbeat,
Yeah.
because and I think they hit the downbeat on the 3 in the thing, because it's like I
Yeah.
know it's coming,
Yeah.
and it gets me.
Yeah.
Like every time when the jaws pop open and tear his arms off,
It's
it just it
still
gets me. Like,
still the most amazing prosthetic special effects. I mean, I can't think of anything that beats the thing.
hmm
I mean, to this
seriously.
day, it still looks freaking amazing, man.
Oh yeah. And I
Bob
like
Rob
I,
Bottin,
I wa-
man, Rob Bottin, he was
big
just
time.
killing it.
And what's so cool too is, like some of the stuff that he was doing had never been done. So like when the dogs are doing their thing, and when
Yeah.
uh like when the head
Oh
tears
man,
itself off and it's crawling across the floor and it's
that
all upside down, and it's like, it's like I can imagine as a producer, as a director, and he's like, okay, here's my concept art. Here's kind of what I'm going with this, and I need I need a whole bunch of foam and clay and like fake teeth and stuff. And they're like, okay, knock yourself out. And then even you can tell even the actors are just like,
yeah,
what is this?
yeah,
Like those reactions in some cases are absolutely real, because they're
yeah.
just like, what is going on?
Yeah, the head
So
scene, man, is probably the one that always just absolutely amazed me. The other one happened so fast that you just, like you said, it's a jump scare kind of thing, and like you said,
mhm.
it's got that off rhythm thing. It's kind of like the scene in Exorcist 3 with the garden shears or whatever, because the timing on that is off too. So it's
hmm
just like that. But something about that, I guess, because the camera's just there, and it's almost like you're standing over the body, and you see that head just start pulling itself off and
Yeah.
stretch itself down to the ground and sprout the legs and stuff.
Well, and
Blew my
even
mind.
well, and all the guys are sitting there watching it happen, and like,
Yeah,
you gotta be kidding me! Like, what is going? Like,
yeah,
this is not, because those guys are not living in a horror movie. Those
right.
guys are living in real life, where they're like on a science outpost, and they're watching this unbelievable stuff happen, and they're just like,
Yeah,
yeah, like, oh my god,
amazing, absolutely amazing. And Kurt Russell is the man for the job, man. Uh,
totally.
him and Keith David, yeah, again, just this cast is just perfect, man.
Yeah, because there's no it's, and I hate to say throwaways, but there are no throwaway characters,
No,
because even if they're not very big, like even if their entire purpose is to eventually just get taken out, they're still got personalities and characters. There's no disposables. They've all got a
yeah,
role to fill too. So when they get lost, then you lose your mechanic, or you lose, your radio operator, or somebody like that, that's important to your survival. And then whenever they go missing,
Yeah.
oh, well, now things are getting worse.
Yeah. And the whole scene where they're doing the test, I mean, that's just
I love that.
absolutely brilliant. And of course, when the body going up to the ceiling and all, I mean, just that movie it's absolutely bonkers, man. The stuff that happens in the movie. So it's like,
It really is.
how do you take a guy that creates the iconic slasher flick, and then he does this cool sci-fi fantasy, rogue guy going in to save, the president. I mean, the range of the stuff that he's doing. And this one is just on such a different level, and it's all because of his love of a movie he grew up scared of.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing.
Well, and you mentioned, because we're talking about Carpenter with Kurt Russell, but you mentioned Halloween,
Yeah.
and between Halloween and Escape from New York or The Thing, the influence that it had on entire genres.
Yeah.
But like, was it James Cameron specifically said that he thought of the Terminator as Michael Myers?
Yeah. Yep.
He thought of it in his head as like, his Terminator is kind of like a cross between Michael Myers and the shark from Jaws. It's just ruthless.
Yep.
And so while it's like that gets into some argument territory about whether or not the Terminator is a horror movie, but
Sure.
But James Cameron very much says, yeah, absolutely, it's a horror movie, and I think so. I mean, I don't think there's any differentiation between it and Halloween, really.
If he came after you and started shooting you up or cutting you with something, yeah, guess what? That's a horror movie.
You're gonna be horrified,
Yeah,
for sure.
So,
well, dude, let's take a break real quick. I want to play one of these trailers. We got too much cool stuff. We got
okay.
we got to let some people hear some soundtrack.
It's not the future we wanted, but the future that happened. Once a great city, now a high-security prison, designed to keep society's criminals in. But now, everything rides on getting one person out.
The survival of the human race, Pliskin. Something you don't give a shit about.
Kurt Russell stars as Snake Plissken in John Carpenter's science fiction action classic, Escape from New York.
You go in, find the president, bring him out in 24 hours, and you're a free man.
What if I'm a little late?
And no more Snake Plissken.
When I get back, I'm gonna kill you.
With an all-star cast that includes Lee Van Cleef, Harry Dean Stanton, Isaac Hayes, Ernest Borgnine, Donald Pleasance, and Adrienne Barbeau. Escape from New York is one of the best escape and escapist movies, according to the New York Times, and a trip worth taking, according to Time magazine. And now, Escape from New York is available in a special director's edition from New Line Home Video. Featuring an exclusive interview with John Carpenter.
It's both our fears and what we would like to have happen. I think we'd all like to have a guy like Snake on our side. And perhaps we'd like to have a police state. But it's the thing we fear the most, too.
Including never-before-seen footage with the original theatrical trailer and the original feature digitally remastered. New Line Home Video is proud to release the director's special edition of Escape from New York, starring Kurt Russell in both widescreen and full-screen versions. Escape from New York, available now for only $19.95 from New Line Home Video.
All right, we are back. So I told you at the beginning I had some cool, some interesting news with pertaining to like Big Trouble in Little China. A buddy of mine here, I've known him for a couple of years. He did a really cool home haunt, and he'd spend buku bucks and do his entire yard, and he had a walkthrough haunt, and the quality of the stuff that he was making out of 2x4s and stuff you can get from Home Depot was professional grade.
Yeah.
I mean, you just look at his stuff and And it was always his dream to go pro. So this year he managed to secure a building, and he's building his haunt.
Yeah, cool.
Unfortunately, it's 2020, so he's not exactly sure how that's going to run. Yeah. Well, he got delayed enough of actually building the haunt itself that he wouldn't be able to open this year anyway because of just all the kinds of different reasons. So he's turning it into escape rooms, but they're immersive escape rooms, and the whole thing is pirate themed. So it's so he approached, he was telling me about he was talking to a bunch of friends, but he approached me and he's like, "Hey, do you think you could write a backstory for the haunt? Because it's got, it's got a layout where you start here, and we've got the ship, and then we've got the shipwreck, and we've got the shark, and we've got the beach and the graveyard and the voodoo princess and all the stuff that you see going through the haunt. Can you write a story?" It's like, "Yeah, I can write a story." I was like, "So when it comes to the scary part, the fear factor, are we talking Pirates of the Caribbean or Texas Chainsaw Massacre?" He said Chainsaw Massacre. This is a haunted attraction. Yeah. Pirates were not nice people. So take the chainsaws out of their hands, and we've got the Sawyer family running around this pirate village. So I wrote the story for him, and then whenever for the haunt, and then he reached out because now he's doing the escape room, so he has to have different chapters written, the story to run through the escape rooms. So he reached out to me to work on writing some of the ad copy for that. And I was talking to his general manager yesterday, and they've got a haunt, and it's like the Dungeon of the Drowned, where you go down and you've got to try to work out different puzzles to keep the locks from opening and drowning you. And they're going to do it with lights and smoke and stuff to where, boom, you're this deep in the water, and boom, you're this. And he was talking about, inspiration and like what, because I was talking about the story, and he's talking about how to incorporate the puzzles with the story. And I was like, "Well, dude, you need to look at the dungeon scene in Big Trouble in Little China." Yeah. Because this is what it's in my head when you're talking about it. So he watched it, and he texted me. He's like, "Dude," he's like, "I'm on a whole new level now." Because that drowning underwater scene in Big Trouble, I mean, it's... Yep. Again, you take John Carpenter, and when we talked about Big Trouble a couple weeks ago, it starts off as kind of a straightforward sort of buddy action karate flick, and by the end of it, it's this strange supernatural horror, and
you ran through all of it,
and it just, and everything in between, and then you got Kurt Russell playing a cross between Snake Plissken and RJ, but not really. RJ's a bunch of serious, but he wants to be Snake. Yeah. So or he wants other people to think he's Snake, so they'll leave him alone. But instead they dress him in a suit as a phone salesman. Or phone.
Oh man! And of course, that scene always sticks out to me too, because I know that John Carpenter is a huge Argento fan. And he kind of got the idea from the opening scene that's in Inferno, where this girl finds this puddle of water, and she gets into it, and it goes down into this room. And it's a full furnished room that's underwater, and there's a body floating around in there, and she's trying to get away from it. Looks so much like the hell of the the hell of the upside down sinners, that he swims through. So, yeah, it's in... Again, we talk about the influence Carpenter has, and you can always go back and see what his influences were. But the thing to me is, even though it's a remake, there's so much originality to it. It's almost like the perfect storm for his storytelling, because the music is right. I mean, the other movies you go, yeah, that's the John Carpenter score, right? You know it. But in this one, it just works perfectly. And then, like I said, just the iconic cast, the effects are just unreal, man. The claustrophobia that movie has, and everybody loves a whodunit. I don't care who you are, you love a whodunit movie.
Certainly, yeah, and that's the thing and that's the big quote that happened whenever the COVID started floating around. Whenever the meme would pop up, it's like nobody trusts each other anymore, and we're all very tired.
Let's just sit here and wait. We'll see what happens. Yeah. So he's always had his finger on that pulse, and I say that, but when you get past this movie, only a couple of more years is kind of where I just kind of go, yeah, I lose interest.
I think.
No Kurt Russell, that's why.
And what's that?
I said no Kurt Russell, that's why.
But, well, Kurt Russell, I mean, with doing Tombstone and he did a lot of stuff that outside of that. But I was gonna say no Carpenter. I read a bit about it. I don't remember what movie it was. But Carpenter wanted to do it, and they were saying he was like, yeah, I need like $20 more million than you're going to offer me, and I get to do the soundtrack, and I get to fire the cast and bring in my own. And the studio was just like, yeah, we're not going to do that. And they ended up bringing in so he got a little bit too.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that happens with good artists, great artists, and even. It's like you need to have somebody to tell you to tap the brakes sometimes.
Yeah.
Because just because you're right most of the time doesn't mean you're right all the time. And
that usually bites you, and I think that's the story that we've seen, not just with him, but with several directors. I mean, as much as we love Stephen King, as much as we love John Carpenter or Wes Craven, you go back and look at it collectively, you got some in there, you're like, yeah, this period right here was your knocking it out of the park. Well, like I said, Argento. Man, there's definitely a stopping point for Argento because, man, he's made some doozers here lately, man. It's just like, yeah, you maybe already hang it up, dude. But
it's like even a guy like Tim Burton, Burton, for the longest time, and Tim Burton's movies, Tim Burton's style, that weird kind of gothic look, is I've always loved that.
Yeah.
It's like always seemed custom made for my personality. But then he just hit a point, and Stephen King, he hit a point where he's like, okay, now I'm writing all of my protagonists are Kathy Bates, and he did that for like 12 years.
Yeah.
And Tim Burton's like, okay, all of my characters are Johnny Depp making strange sounds and Helena Bonham Carter. and
then I'm going to make Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, and I was like okay. The thing that made Tim Burton movies so great was how differentiated they were, and how he could squeeze different performances. Like you're going to turn Mr. Mom into Beetlejuice
or Batman,
and then into Batman. Like, that's a masterstroke. Having the same guy do the same thing over and over again just to me got a little bit lazy.
Yeah.
But he has a blank check because he's Tim Burton, right? And I think Carpenter had a blank check until he started writing a few that didn't cash.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy Christine, and it's strange because for the longest time, a lot of people didn't. They were always like, "Oh, it's a demon car. It's hokey." Christine's,
it's pretty good.
For a demon car movie, it's pretty good.
Well, it's not just the car; it's possessing him too. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and what movie was he in that was so recent that I saw? I was like, "Whoa, that's Arnie."
I don't know. Was he in something recent?
No, he wasn't in it recently. I saw a movie recently, and I was like, "Oh, that's him." Like, I'll have to. He's
in Jaws too. I know that.
That was it. He was in Jaws too, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah.
He's got the backwards hat on.
Yeah. Yeah. So he popped up here and there. He was also in Back to School.
Mm-hmm, that's
Rodney
right.
Dangerfield. So.
But his range in that movie was going from just like the kind of dorky bullied kid to just the old man. Like the movie Christine, it's weird because it seems like the movie Christine was made for people who had read the book, because in the book he's slowly being possessed by the old man who had owned the car.
Right. Like
the car always had problems, but it was the old man that had owned the car that he was becoming.
Right.
And he started talking like him, and he hurt his back, and he had the back brace like him. he had the same limp. He started smoking the same tobacco. Like he was turning into the guy because it was the guy that the car had fallen in love with.
Right.
He does that to an extent
right.
in the movie.
You see it, but it's not. Yeah.
But he's still the range that he does turning from the kid to the old man is pretty wicked.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you've never seen Christine, check it out. And that's another reason it's funny because that Plymouth Fury, right?
Yep.
So Stephen King wrote the book about the Plymouth Fury because it was a mean looking, somewhat innocuous car, but it was never a collector vehicle.
Right.
It was never a Bel Air or anything like that. So, but once the book came out and the movie came out, collectors started looking for it.
Yeah.
But the movie destroyed most of the surviving specimens because the studio bought up all of the Plymouth Furies that were available and beat them up, crushed them up, smashed them, and destroyed them. So now it's even harder to find. So there was one that was fully restored with original parts and signed by the cast and Stephen King that was on auction for $1 million.
Wow.
I'm like,
that's crazy.
If I had $1 million to spend on a car, I'd buy 2 Lamborghinis. Man. I wouldn't buy Christine.
A pink one and a yellow one.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's get this out in the open. So, Escape from L.A.
I saw that once right when it first came out, and the whole surfing snake just kind of seemed like it was.
Yeah, man.
It was one of those things where it's like, and I realized that back in the day, like in the 70s, they had variety shows, so you'd have, iconic characters either making fun of themselves or being made fun of, like Star Wars Christmas special and stuff like that. It was like, it was bad news, but by the time the 90s were so self-aware that I remember I don't even remember paying attention. I just remember not liking that movie.
Yeah. And there's people out there that are big time fans. So if you're listening and you're a fan of it, hey, more power to you, because there's people that like Jaws 4. So there's got to be people like this movie too. But it just I'm looking at it. I've got it here in my DVD collection. I've never watched it because I saw it in the theater back in the day. And same thing, man. There's 2 movies I was never more excited about going and seeing. One was Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, because I loved Excellent Adventure so much. And this one, because you heard all the hype, right? Oh, man, you got Kurt Russell and Bruce Campbell in a movie together. You got, like you said, this person in it and this person in it. And you're thinking, all right, this is going to be cool. And it really wasn't. So I walked out of both those movies feeling the same way, like, what has happened to my childhood?
Right.
Oh.
And it's funny because I enjoyed Bogus Journey. Like, I watched Excellent Adventure. That's classic. Yeah. I enjoyed Bogus Journey, but it was just, both of them were just so dumb that I was just kind of like,
okay.
I guess my expectations weren't that high. I was just kind of like, okay, cool, like.
Yeah.
And then Keanu Reeves turned around and just became a huge star. Like shortly after that, like he was doing like massive blockbuster films.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you have those people, those characters, those whatever. It's like, I've always really liked Keanu Reeves as a person. I've always thought he was in really cool movies, but I never thought he could act.
Oh, he's cardboard. Yeah. Whoa.
But then I go back and I watch some of his old stuff, like Point Break, and and he's actually pretty good. Like the John Wick stuff is pretty good. Like that kind of
love the John Wick films, man. They're great.
I mean, it's just like a dance. It's just perfect choreographed.
Yeah.
Mayhem and
yeah.
But yeah,
good stuff.
Bogus Journey, but.
I need to check it out again because it's just one of those I haven't taken the time to go back and revisit. I'm sure it's not as bad as I remember. It's just I think I had an expectation of it, right? Same thing with Escape from L.A. Man, this is the return of Snake Plissken, and of course you get all the cool stories about him and John hanging out and kicking around the idea of doing a sequel to Escape from New York, and Kurt Russell says, "Hey, I've still got the outfit." So he actually still had the outfit from the first movie. It's like, wow, how cool is that? So that tells you right there how special they knew that, what they made together was really, really, really something. So that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And, again, with Escape from New York and just I want to say the history of, New York was on its way down. So whenever they made this movie, New York was already a pretty violent and apocalyptic
rough place. Yeah.
And they had to get federal funds and triple police and literally drive bulldozers through neighborhoods and clean up the crap, because New York actually looked like that at some, if you watch Night Court, watch the intro to Night Court and see how graffitied up everything was, and there's just people on the street and bums and people in Night Court. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
It's a lighthearted comedy, and it's even in the lighthearted comedy, you got bums sleeping on the floor in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And it's so that's where, so it was probably realistic whenever it came out. It was ooh, this is what it's turning into. And, like you said, and then you have all this anarchy and crazy stuff going on in current events now. It's we'll just build a wall around
it. We're heading right back into it again,
And I think, honestly, that's what I said at the beginning, was that it not only does it hold up, but it's almost kind of prescient. It's the only thing about it, man, I'm sitting around man, I would really like to explore. I know there's got to be there's bad stuff behind a lot of those doors. There's also probably a lot of cool stuff in an abandoned city like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Got left behind, furnished apartments with art and, pool tables and stuff that are just out there. It's fascinating. It's just, I love that kind of stuff. It's super cool.
Yeah. It just, again, John had the eye for this stuff. And I don't know that he knew that he was making these films that would last such a long time and just be such a big part of pop culture. And he's definitely left his mark. And I mean, Kurt Russell, again, he's just as busy now as he's ever been, I guess. And that's amazing when you think about it. Not a lot of actors have that kind of career.
No, not at all, and especially I've heard the joke that he was Walt Disney. His final words were Kurt Russell, and nobody knew why. He had actually written it on a piece of paper because he wanted him to be in a movie or something. But to come from little teenage child actor, and then up through the, you don't have a whole lot of child actors with that kind of staying power,
right?
That make it through. Then he got to marry Goldie Hawn, of all people, right?
Yeah.
And that's a win. You can just go home after that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mission accomplished.
So, but then just keep on going. And then, with movies like Death Proof and,
Bone Tomahawk.
The Hateful Eight, freaking,
Guardians Part 2, man. I mean, he's just everywhere.
when he's riding on that star and just waving, you're hey,
it's only Kurt Russell, man. Yeah.
You can tell he was just having fun playing that role, But then Tombstone.
Yeah.
Tombstone is another one of those movies that it's just a perfect film.
Yeah.
And it's just, the casting is awesome. He's a pretty easygoing guy right up until they shoot up that pool house, that pool room, that bar. And then after that scene where he's in the dudes in the opium den.
Yeah.
He reaches up to take a puff, and he's got the barrel of the pistol in his mouth. He's just like done.
Yeah.
Like he's just on a rampage. He's just
Yeah. Yeah, he's
good.
Fantastic, man. Yeah. But all in all, when it comes down to it, my favorite movie that he's in, freaking Used Cars, man. I loved Used Cars so much. So all of you out there, if you haven't checked out Used Cars, do it. Just do it. I mean, it's Kurt Russell as a car salesman. I mean,
outrunning the mileage back.
running the miles back on the car, trying to be elected as an officer in the town. I don't know if he's running for mayor or governor or something, and
sticks the bumper back on with his gum.
Lures the guy off the other car lot with a dollar bill tied onto a fishing pole, across 4-lane traffic. It's fantastic, man.
Like, oh, hey, what? I see you're looking for something.
Great movie, man. I just showed somebody a scene from that at work, and it was the Marshall Lucky scene, where they go to the competitor's lot, and Marshall Lucky's out there, and he's like, "What's this? A Cadillac for $49.95? That's too high!" And he just starts shooting the car. And the guy that owns the car lot is watching it on TV, and he's like, "Son of a," because he realizes they're just blowing his cars up. It's fantastic, man. Yeah. Anyways, we weren't supposed to talk about that.
Hey, it's okay, man. That's what we're here for. Talking about fun stuff. We got another one which I don't think we're gonna stay too far in the lines coming up for next week. So
yeah,
it's all right, man.
It'd be tough.
So, but cool. Let's we're kind of pushing up on the end here. So what do we got going on? We've got Facebook. We have got the Twitter. We've got, what all do we have now?
Instagram. Yeah, things. We're hitting the Holy Trinity there, right?
Yep.
Well, still got the YouTube page. We've got 5 subscribers.
Sweet.
So that's better than 4. So
that is.
If you want to check out what we got going on the YouTube page, feel free to go over there and look up You Know What's Awesome and subscribe.
Well, too, man, come over and join the fun. I have been trying to get as much content up on the page, and if you think that maybe we're one of those other kind of pages where you have to talk about what we're talking about, like, oh, well, they're just going to have a thread talking about John Carpenter and whatever. No,
nope.
Dude, come and talk about whatever we want.
Anything you think is awesome it's fair game, and chances are a lot of the people that are there, good bunch of people, they'll probably like it too.
Yeah, and people are constantly, throwing pictures up, chatting about things, and it's everything. It's everything. Last week we talked about, water parks, and people are talking about their favorite memories of summertime activities and stuff. So, but come join the fun. We have a good time.
Absolutely. So. And, yeah, it's a fun Facebook group, so everybody's welcome.
Certainly. And then, we after a bit of hiatus, just because of communication issues and some different stuff, Scott and I have revamped and kicked back up Scary Dad.
Yay!
So it's gonna start releasing every Wednesday, but we are coasting into that Halloween season. We got about half convinced my 6.5-year-old daughter that she's going to be Tiny Head Beetlejuice.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna stuff one of my shirts.
Well, here's some news for you. Of course, this will not really make a lot of sense to people listening, but this weekend we've got not only a new short bus that's going to be recorded, but we're doing a new Helming.
Nice.
So looking forward to that. We've kind of been on hiatus as well, and looking forward to talking on the old Helming show. It's been a while.
Yeah, dude, I've been missing it. Yeah, I'm so far behind on a lot of my podcasts because I'm not in my car listening to stuff anymore. Like I'm in the office, doing different things than I did before. But I've got some catching up to do. But whenever you guys kick out a new one, I try to give it a listen real fast.
Yeah.
So
good chemistry there. It's almost like John Carpenter and Kurt Russell.
Good stuff.
Hey, before we hang up too, because I know he's listening, because we're talking about The Thing and Escape from New York, but my buddy R.J. McCready, just gave him a shout out because I know The Thing's his favorite movie of all time. He's got a heck of a podcast too. He and I actually took over the show that we started off with A Dude Looks Like the 80s. He kind of took it and ran with it for a while by himself. And he's got Bite-Size Cinema now, which is fantastic. Okay. And
awesome.
Yeah, it's little, 10, 15-minute reviews of movies, and he's killing it, man. So, RJ, you my brother.
Awesome, dude. Well, cool. Well, that's a lot of news, and we're going to close it out, and we will see you next week. Stay awesome.